Nathan, our brother. How are you, man?
Good, man. Good.
Good. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're able to sit down with me, man. Just kind of talk, man. Talk about yourself, man. Just talk about how things are in this current situation that we're in, and
Yeah.
um, just kind of dive in, man. So how are you? How you feeling?
Honestly, I think that one thing that I would say that I feel the most is a little bit of kind of like a transcendence, right? Where it's been a lot of worry and stress and going into just entrepreneurship in general over the past few years. And I think that the thing that's resonated most with me lately is getting comfortable with chaos and knowing how to organize your mind amidst so many different distractions that are now more prevalent than ever. That's kind of really what I feel like is like I feel like I've been able to get a little bit of that clarity in a time where most people, I guess, would say otherwise.
Right. What's been helping you just with that clarity? That's something I definitely can struggle with as far as sometimes like having clarity about the current moment, what to take from it. For you,
I
what's
think
it
the
been?
biggest thing is like when you're thinking about like your objectives and where you want to go in direction, there's always like a number of different ways to get there. So you have to have that level of openness and that variability. And I've found that through getting enlightened through mentors. So like having the right mentors that have been through financial crises in the past. And then also is having a family that is able to be stoic, which means, just being able to focus on the primary objectives and the basic needs, and maybe some of those distracting things that you were doing before aren't as important as you thought that they once were.
Right.
So I think it's prioritizing, finding good mentors, and having a good foundation in your household, I think is the only way you can get there.
Sure. So foundation, that's a lot of the base of what it is. What's for you, how important is your family and even your friends? How important has it been to just make sure those relationships have been great during this time?
I think they've been as strong as they've ever been, largely because our background is not one of wealth, right? The only thing that's ever held us together and where we are has been that sense of unity and purpose around really accelerating our family from poverty to being able to have a name for themselves one day.
Right.
So that's this whole new normal for other people is the only thing I've ever known. Only thing I've ever known was struggle. The only thing I've ever known was challenges. So there's kind of this competitive side and this, I think, aggressive side that comes from people who have been through less than privileged situations. And even the privilege that looks like privilege comes with challenges, but I can't speak to that. I think that it's just been really just acceptance of challenges and finding strength through that adversity. I mean, that's the only tattoo I have on my body. It's like, that's what I talk about all the time. And so I think that's really what it is to me. And my mom and brother also believe in that same system, right? And when I was younger, the only thing that got me to school or even through college, anything, was that support group. Me, my family, and my friends, we helped each other when others did not have things. So that's kind of what we got to do now. We got to support local businesses. We got to support each other. There's nothing different than the same thing that they say it takes a village to raise a child. It's really kind of how we should treat ourselves and our businesses, is like that level of unity.
Yeah, and it's for just even the community standpoint of helping like locally and having that firm foundation. Not a lot of people have firm foundations and can kind of get lost in not really knowing what direction they want to take their support or what things that they can do. And like you said, local and community is extremely important. Was that something early on in life? Kind of talk about just growing up. You're from Milwaukee.
From right outside of Milwaukee. So my mom grew up in the inner city of Chicago in the Wild Hundreds, if any of you guys know it. And it's not a good area. She was one of 11 kids, the oldest, and had to raise all the rest of them in less than privileged situations. So like she had a level of adversity that trumps even what I went through, right? So then I look at, where she went into after her, my father moving to Wisconsin and trying to really build a family for themselves. They were far too young, but it's okay. And at the end of the day, she just had this level of tenacity.
Right.
And so did my father, that really helped them to push through where they were at, and eventually had to become a single mom. So it was just me and my brother until, forever, still now. And we just had to grind and grow, and it really built that really good focus. We also had to watch her mom go through lights being off and having to sit in line at the food pantry and all that stuff. And it's like, It sucked, and sucked to like look at other kids who had things. You almost kind of resent, like even the color of my skin. Like, oh, maybe if I was white, I wouldn't be poor and stuff. And it was just such a pity party mindset. And that's kind of how I lived my life up until I was like 19 years old. Is honestly being almost selfish, just regardless of my circumstances. There was no need for me to be entitled to anything.
Right.
This is the cards I've been dealt. What am I going to do about it, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the chip on my shoulder that kind of fell off when I thought that I had it and I didn't. So I got this job at Sears and I was a receiving manager. I'm like, man, I'm finally gonna be a manager. Like, I'm the man. And everybody leaves. I'm like, man, I just gotta keep working hard and I can really make a career for myself at Sears with no high school diploma. And I got a umbilical hernia. Right. My stomach burst.
Jeez.
And I was like, man, everything's taken away from me. No, it really wasn't. It was God saying, hey, that's not what the plan I have for you. And so I'm gonna have to take that from you so you can see what I really have planned. Right. So then I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go back into my dance career and be a dancer. Then I'll make some money on the side doing other stuff. So I get into that, and all of a sudden getting a job at UPS. And my brother's like, man, you need to go back and get, your high school equivalency, because I didn't not graduate high school on time because I was stupid. It was because I just gave up on my life. I was like, man, I was a class president.
Right.
And I just eventually the day I got hit hard enough, I fell. Yeah. And he's like, you can do so much more. I believe in you. Mm-hmm. So I went back, got it accepted into a technical school, then accepted into the University of Milwaukee. Then I moved to Milwaukee. But right when that all happened, I actually was applying to be a supervisor at UPS. I'd only been working there for 4 months in a trailer. And eventually what ended up happening was just me pushing to see how can I run this operation that's the hardest belt, the yellow belt in the building, to at least break even. We actually became the #1 belt in the entire building and had the best numbers in the nation. And literally, they're like, Nate, you should run these belts and become a supervisor. Right when I was moving to Milwaukee, which allowed me to have my first place with one of my homies who actually lives out here now. And that was kind of like my launch pad to realizing something. It was like, if you work really, really, really hard and you look at challenges as an opportunity to win, it will almost always lead to a new opportunity because there's about 1% of the people that are willing to do that.
Right.
A lot of people are like, what are you going to do for me? The people waiting for a stimulus check versus going and making themselves a check, right? So like, I think that that's really what's carried over from youth to now, is that challenges just have a name. It could be COVID-19 or it could be poverty. But at the same time, a challenge is a challenge. You just got to look at it the same way.
Sure. I love how you mentioned how there was a moment where you almost got a push when you were younger from someone who was like, you've got something in you that can help you become, the person you want to be. And sometimes we need those people early in our lives that just give us that motivation. Like I remember, I played football in college, in high school, and I remember one of my receiver coaches, name's Coach Christensen, and that's really the only coach I really remember, other than my head coach, obviously. And he was always encouraging, always encouraged, just trying to get better, taking it day by day, and not always looking at the result, but just looking at the effort that I gave. And I'll always remember him. My English teacher, Miss O'Connor, she always was encouraging towards just pushing me to whatever it is I wanted to do. And so even now, I'm sure you have a ton of mentors that have helped you get to where you were and are, and currently, who are some people that you lean on for advice in situations?
Straight up, there's nobody more than Saul, because without him, I would never even found my way out of that darkness. Because the funny part is, he wasn't some tender love either. Right. It was like, Nate, you have a lot of potential. Do you know what that means? I was like, what? He goes, that means you ain't did shit yet.
Right.
I was like, dang. It's like, so you got to achieve it before you celebrate it. It's like, I'm like, damn.
Just hard love.
Yeah, it's hard love. It's like, stop believing, you got talent. Like, that's not enough. Right. And for him, he had other challenges that I didn't have, but he was still exceeding me. So now, even to this day, when I look at every single barrier I've been in, from how I got into college, how I got my job at UPS, that was all Saul. And when I started Ease in the beginning, I was all sales and operations. I did it. But once it got to getting into venture capital, Saul was like, all right, I'll quit my job. I just decided that I'm good at you're not. So it's always been he and I since as far back as I can remember.
For sure.
And then once we got to a point where it was like, all right, we can only take ourselves so far, we started to look for mentors in specific areas, and those areas where we were weak. I didn't know how to raise venture capital, so I went through an accelerator. I didn't know how to build a sales team, so I got a sales advisor and investor. And those are like different types of people that have been amazing to me. But then I've also got friends like you where it's like, all right, there's the business side of me, but there's the creative side that also marries my business, have taught me how to realize my visions in ways that I couldn't. So it's like, it's a countless list of mentors, friends, and family that really make it all work. But you got to be clear on what you want for anybody to even be able to help you. Like, you got to go to somebody and say, because I could go to any CEO and say, hey man, I would love to learn from you. Damn, dude, what department?
Right.
What skill?
Right.
Like, what do you need today, right? And that's where you can start looking to where you want to go. Because if you don't figure that out, don't go waste a mentor's time.
Sure.
Figure out what you want to do, who you are, and where you want to be. And if you haven't figured that out yet, go read some books by Daniel Pink. So,
I think that's beautiful. Even the importance of the family dynamic. You know, me growing up, I've had my mom and dad in my life my whole life, and they pushed me to continuously be better, to thrive, and to go after the things that I want. And you know, my brother has always been pushing me. My cousin, who's my business partner, Ron, has always pushed me to continuously to not just settle. And I think that's important. So just kind of switching gears from there, what within your work, what specifically you do? You do a lot, and that's the one thing I love about you, is that you're not willing to settle for whatever is just put in front of you. You're always looking to push the envelope. You're always looking for new opportunities. So talk about a little bit about the work that you do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the root of what I do is almost the same, but across different industries. So at the core of what I started off is I was working in loading trailers, right? That has nothing to do with what I do now, you'd think, but it does. So I went from ops there to a CERC supervisor, which is a co-chair employee retention committee supervisor. And what that required me to do was to be a listener. And then I also, at the same time, was in an entertainment space. I was a dancer. It required me to listen in a different way, listen to body language, listen to how people responded to sound and taste. So I just got really, really good at listening. So I was like, man, so if I could control the experiences at work and control the experiences outside of it, I would have the best indication of what happiness looks like for people beyond just myself. So I got really, really fixated on that, a lot of psychological studies, a lot of things like that. And that truth would never be realized without capital. So while learning marketing, I realized that marketing could teach me how to figure out how people engage with their interests and their lifestyle based on where social economics is or what cities and states they live in.
Right.
Got really deep into loving digital marketing, ad campaigns, etc., which led to me doing it for businesses because it allowed me to have different perspectives while making money and getting data that was interesting to me.
Yeah.
So then now I'm literally building a business, not around caring as much about selling people's products, even though that was needed to succeed. It was about the data I could get back and how I could reshape how I view the world and how it works, from how video is used in the process to this real estate is used in the process. It all got interesting. So now I was like, oh, Nate, you do everything, don't you? No, I fulfill a specific need in that vertical in multiple businesses. That was just the beginning. So then after I started doing really well with marketing, I started to graduate to working with larger businesses. And small business is unique. Everybody's all focused on leads and business and revenue. But as you graduate to new heights, it's not as much focused on customer acquisition anymore because they've got their market fit. It's about how do I get feedback on what makes my operation successful from cost control all the way to the customer experience. And that customer experience is impacted by the experience that my people have at work. So how do I get an indicator on how to fix that?
Right.
Well, I was like, I don't know. Marketing's not the solution, but HR, culture, and people are.
Right.
So what if I can now figure out how to make people happy? So we started working with a lot of data scientists, certified behavioral consultants, and we literally decided like, hey, what if we could build a product that indexed culture, personality, behaviors, and then figured out how each one of those people would match when joining a team, or if their skills aren't aligned, what team would they be on? Like, how do we automate the selection process of bringing people together that won't have clashes?
Sure.
And we made that, right? And it took years and lots of research. When that now is taking us into a whole new chapter, where it's like now, we're a people analytics company that staffs marketers, engineers, et cetera. And all of that is done so we can collect more data on people so that we can create better experiences at work.
Right.
So that's my computer side of me, data side, but then I own bars and restaurants, which allow me to do the same thing. People don't realize from every ad or post they see on social media to when they walk in the door and connect to my Wi-Fi, I have data tracking all the way through. So now I'm like literally looking at two sides of the business, and the coronavirus is like crazy because one side it's helping this ecosystem, and this whole new world, virtual world's going on, and the other side is destroying everything that these people know, and there's literally nothing they can do about it until the government says open. So it's like, it's crazy to be in these two worlds, but like my job is analyzing data to customize experiences.
One thing I noted from that is you talking about your chapters and knowing, okay, this chapter of my life, I wanted to build ease. And then from building that chapter, I went to another chapter because of what ease provided. And so for you, talk a little bit about focus, because I feel like that's a big thing in this world, is that there's so many things that we can do and so many things we can get caught up in. And, how important for you is focus, and how do you find focus? What are some ways maybe people can
Yeah. The best way to do it is read Gino Wickman's Traction, and you're going to utilize the EOS principles. And what it allows you to do is to create value matrices and story matrices. And it's basically a spreadsheet or a document or a piece of paper where you write down what's your business identity, mission, vision, the standard shit that you would do when you build a business. Sorry for etiquette.
No. This is open. Come on now.
So the standard
talking. Come on now.
standard stuff you do to build a business, and then from there you go, all right, well, if I'm going to take this action and partner with this company, how does it impact my vision or mission or values, right? And you do that with friends also. Do these people align with vision, values, and mission? And if they do, then do it. And then you say, okay, well, at what phase am I? Be real with yourself. Because I talked to somebody recently who was like, oh, I want to raise like $5 million and this and that. Okay, buddy, you don't understand, raising $5 million means you need to return 10 to 12x of capital to investors.
Right.
And you're going to have you need to have like a $50 million company, and you need to be able to do it in the next like 3 years. Like, let's not talk about that.
Yes.
We got there yet.
Like there's a time that you have to
be realistic. Like,
realistic,
all right,
right.
What's your foundation? Does it match with your foundation? Does it match with where you are today and what you want to accomplish in the next like 18 months? So like that's how you stay focused. It's like 18-month roadmaps, personal and professionally, and then you break those into quarters, and each quarter gets broken down into monthly goals, and monthly goals gets broken down into weekly goals, and weekly goals get broken down into daily goals.
Yeah.
And that's how you create positive routines.
Right.
So you can find those positive routines through reading some of Daniel Pink's books about drive and motivation and how to find like the perfect day.
Yeah.
Like there's psychological science to all of this.
Right.
And I could send all these links to people.
Yeah.
And I use them for myself.
This is valuable information. I mean, books, obviously, other video resources that people can watch. He's aggressive. Like I've watched a lot of his videos, and he's very like. He's gonna tell you how it is.
Yeah.
He's not gonna cut any corners. He's not gonna fluff anything up, and that's what's cool. But all right. So within that, let's talk a little bit about happiness. Just finding your happiness. We want to work. We need to work. That's what life essentially has become within America. It's like we got to work to make a living. Within that, how do you go about finding your happiness? Staying true to your core beliefs, staying true to your interests outside of making an income.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with is like we talked about earlier, visualization of problems and thinking problems that attract you, because realistically, happiness comes from progress. So if you feel like you're progressing, you feel like you're moving forward, regardless of what forward looks like to you, then you're good, right? And one thing that works is if you were to take your entire day, your ideal day, or maybe you just take a weekday and a weekend day. And what I did in the beginning was I said, all right, every hour I'm going to write down on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy am I? and then how much money did I make in that hour? It could be $0, it could be $20, it could be $100. And when I did that throughout an entire day, I was actually able to index which things I enjoyed doing and didn't like doing, and how much money I made or lost while doing them. And if I had to look at it, I was like, all right, the things that I made the most money and had the least happiness at this scale. Or maybe I made the most money and I was moderately happy. Or maybe I was really, really happy and I made a lot of money. Well, why wouldn't I spend more of my time doing that, right? So that's kind of like, phase one of looking at yourself to figure out what happiness looks like for you. But a lot of that also is supported by your core values. And that's what you have to identify those. I know a lot of people, especially if you're in the service or industries, your core values may be different than somebody who's grown up in a more professional business environment where it's more of an office environment, right? Sure. So when those core values are different, you have to figure out, are where you are today and what you're doing today match with those, or are you being pushed outside of them?
Right.
So I would say, like, if you know that and your job aligns, then you'll be good. Because a lot of the data that I even get back with organizations and why they don't like their jobs and this or that, it's just the belief systems and culture I'm mentioning. It's not that they weren't capable. So that's one thing. And then, for me, I love creating experiences. I mean, I've done that since I was 16, man. We had this party called the Jump Off at the YMCA. Oh, yeah. I was like, let's go. We sell $5 tickets in Red Bull. Right, and it was like, and the look and the feeling that I get, like even at my bars, like when I look out at the crowd, I'm not seeing dollars. I'm like, look at the fact that, like, I've had people get engaged there, meet their significant others, like pay for their student debt. Like, it's so cool that even 1,800 miles away, I look on my phone and watch people like having the time of their life from something I created. Or like with ease, it's like I have people and families saying they get to spend more time with their kids, less time in the car, being able to have more jobs, more income because of something we created. And like the impact I'm having on somebody else's life supersedes any amount of money I can make.
Right. Impact on people's lives. That's a great way to look at it. Because it's easy to become self-centered. It's easy to become self-motivated and get caught up in your ego and what I need to do. But when you start to project the idea that this isn't about me, this is about how I can build everyone else up, and build experiences for everyone else to enjoy. That's when it doesn't become work. It becomes just a part of life. That's extremely important. You're a data guy. Data is your thing. You love analyzing data, talking about data. Tell us where that came from. Data.
Honestly, man, like I didn't even like math before. Like it was never like no. I think a lot of it came from not wanting to fail and uncertainty. Yeah. I don't like uncertainty, so I get that closer feeling of certainty by looking at things the right way. I realized that my emotions typically would lead me in the wrong way because the past, the way humans succeeded in life was our intuition. We would base it off what we've seen and what we felt and what we tasted and maybe past experiences that other people had. And when that perspective was largely limited to your environment, or the people you interacted with. What the internet allowed us to do was to be able to capture what other people's experiences are in real time in a much larger scale. And then to interpret that. So it allowed me to realize my own biases, realize my limitations in my perspective, realize that there's ways that things can work in different environments and from different perspectives. So by doing that, I realized that if I could understand data, that I would never be lost or uncertain.
Uncertain, right? Yeah. Right. It's provided you with that.
Or less uncertainty. We never know.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, it's a higher percentage chance that you'll understand it if you have the data behind it. And so, data within that idea. How do you analyze? How do you go about analyzing?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the best ways if you're going to approach it with marketing is understanding what like Facebook really is. Maybe that's a good start for everybody. It's free. You don't have to spend any money to like be able to test it. Is start with Facebook Pixel. Start with understanding how your newsfeed works and how social works. It's not like how cool your pictures are realistically. Yeah. It's does your content match the format or the intent that the users are looking for. So if you're building travel content or if you're building a certain specific type of content, does your style of content match with the most successful trending pieces of content online, or does it not? And you'll be able to figure it out by putting pixel on your blogs, on your ads, and on everything else. Now you're collecting data inside of a dashboard that's free to view. You can do it with Google, same thing. Another thing you can do it with is SEO and search traffic. I mean, there's a limitless amount of ways that you could apply it. What I would say is find something interesting to you, like in the form of video. If you're a videographer or if you're a content creator or something, well, how do you judge the success of your content? Oh, I love this in this tone or this is red. Okay, well, if your customers and users get click-through rates like 1%, your intuition was wrong. But if it says, when it's that tone, it gets 30% more engagement rate, now you say, hey, I create successful pieces of content that convert, not just I create great videos. Yeah. You add on that and that's where data becomes valuable to a creator. And as a business owner, just look at your bank account. That's where data is most important.
Right. Exactly. We have these data, not data, but we have these content talks all the time, man, and just share videos, share our own personal content, because we just have a love for it. I have a love for content, just creating it, and just figuring out how to make it look better. And you help me with the side of, okay, how can I apply how it looks to, okay, how are other people going to perceive it and intake it and make it convert to whatever I want it to convert to. And so I think that's really cool. Let's talk about content. What's some of your favorite type of content? What's content do you, because you create content as well. What are some things you really enjoy creating?
My perspective on this is always going to include bias, as I'm largely in a B2B experience. I've never had a full-time job. I've never worked in an office setting. So like my interactions are largely with peer-to-peer. Like, so what I like to consume in terms of content is content that's actionable and clear and with its intent. So a lot of people, it's the guru era, right? So it's all this guru talk where it's motivational dialogue can be really relevant because that's what got me to where I am today. But at a certain level, motivation doesn't turn into what I'm looking for is growth. So I look for pieces of content that help me learn more about me or other people, help me run my business more efficiently. I'm willing to pay a premium for that content because things that aren't out there for everyone to know, it's hard to find nowadays. Like, can I get some real solid information that isn't a blog that's greeted with an ad to sell your product? I'm like, dang it. This is
like you're digging and shuffling through clothes just to find the one thing that you want. Yeah.
And that's because those guys know search engine, they know traffic, they know how to hack an algorithm, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best piece of content. It could just mean that this person just knows the algorithm better. So I just look deep and far for pieces of content that are developmental, but with real depth. Right. But then there's other forms of content where on my other side, if I'm not in my business setting, like I love seeing cinematography that like really captures what life looks like through the lens. Because I swear to God, like when you can look back on an experience through that lens, sometimes it's better than what you actually experienced. I know that was fun.
I can't believe this looks like this.
Yeah, so it's like that's the thing I love that. Like my ultimate look, I'll tell you this all the time, is like, man, I just want to make it really, really go really far, and like build a big media company or something, because it'd be so great to be able to capture those experiences. Because I don't necessarily think that the big media companies of the day understand what we really want to consume. Right. It's just what they're used to. I can't wait for that next wave of content that is raw, authentic, and because that's what we cannot find right now.
We can't find it.
Nobody can believe anything they hear.
It's tough, and it's like everything is you put the makeup on it and gloss it up and glamorize it, and there's not enough of, man, I just woke up on the shitty side of the bed today, and I feel like crap. I don't feel like doing anything, or I'm going through it with my girl, or I'm going through it with, I'm having trouble.
Like stuff that Sylvester puts out there.
Yeah, like the real authentic, and it's like everything that we see, majority, I would say 95% of it is everything is good. All my relationships are good. All my friendships are good. And we all know that's not the truth.
Yeah, I told people last week I'm losing $50,000 a week. That's not good. I'm not happy about it. Right. So it's like, what are other people doing? How can we help each other? Put more out there.
We've got to be transparent. We got to be vulnerable, man. That's what I want this to be. I mean, we talk about content. This is content, but I want it to be. Obviously, we've got a great backdrop, and I think locations like this, filming a location like this, I never want to put out content that's I'm here and you're here. I want it to be motivation. I want it to be like, these are places that are real, that you can access if you give effort, if you put yourself in a position to learn about
and surround yourself with the right people, right? Like people think like, oh, like last week, I realized perception and insecurity can lead people. I'm a humble person, and my mentor takes me an opportunity to fly to Malibu and be in a pretty extravagant mansion and a private jet, and everyone's like immediately thinks, oh, I didn't think you would be like this, or why are you so distant? I'm like, where did all this come from? Where did all the 30 years of my life of work come from? Not in the context of saying, hey, oh, wow, or nothing, or like, hey, I'm with my mentor who's spending time with me and blessed me with an opportunity. Why go that route, right? And it's not because you want to flex or show off. It's more one of those things where it's like, hey, if you work hard and you surround yourself with the right people, those people will see something in you that may put you ahead of where you're supposed to be. It's that, oh, fake it till you make it. That's not the case. No. All your rappers, they don't own those chains, those rent it. That's fake it till you make it. But at the same time, it's part of branding, right? It's, hey, if I'm going to be out in the scene and I'm going to be building my relationships with amazing, highly valuable people, I'm going to show you that somebody from nothing can attain this, so can you. There's a difference between, like, I won't say who, some people on like YouTube, they're always taking pictures in front of Lamborghinis. They literally pay to rent it all out and set it up. And then they lie and say they're business gurus. They get people's money and they never offer them value. That's not appropriate. But if you literally, this is normal life for us, right? We're blessed to have great friends. But we didn't look like this 2 years ago.
For sure. And that's, even you speak about the hip hop community, and most of those rappers, we know where they're from. They talk about where they're from in their music. Like, they talk about the struggle. They talk about maybe if they had connections with violence and anything like that. Like, it's transparent that, and that's the big thing. It's like transparency. Like, a lot of the guys that we talk about like you mentioned on YouTube, we don't know anything about the background.
Yeah.
They're just like, show up with
all of a sudden you got a Lamborghini
like,
yesterday?
What's your journey, man?
I've never even, or their business names isn't real.
Yeah.
People are like screenshotting Shopify accounts, and it's a lot of a fraudulent market. But the authenticity comes from showing the whole thing.
You gotta show.
And if we show the whole thing, you can't be mad.
Right.
If your life doesn't match somebody else's, then go out and grind, right? Sure. And I think that's really too, is like that envy is a problem nowadays. It's plaguing society. It's plaguing our youth. It's pushing people to go more extreme on content where they're losing their lives or getting hurt or putting themselves out there in ways that they can never retract. So I think that authenticity is one thing, but also values is another. And internet bullying hits all ages.
It does, 100%. It's real. And so for you, how, seeing how currently this podcast is focused on millennials. We're millennials, and we grew up in a really, really interesting time, I believe, because we know what it's like to not have an iPhone in our hands.
MapQuest.
Like, like we're on MapQuest.
Why didn't you tell me the term was coming, man?
Like, I printed out the sheet.
Yeah.
MapQuest
I couldn't tell what 0.8 miles was.
Exactly. Like, we understand what it's like to go outside of our house and not be connected to any virtual world. Like, we're just living. I mean, we had Game Boys and action figures and stuff, and we're like, our growing up, we were face to face. We're looking you in the eye. We're gonna tell you how it is and talk to you about what's happening right now. It's not gonna be anything virtual. And so, what's your perspective on just how from you being a kid until now, and how technology has just transformed?
Man, I work a lot with the youth through Don Wettrick's program, Started Up Foundation, and I've seen the transformation in the eras. I can tell you pros and cons of both eras. The youth has greater and rapider access to knowledge, which accelerates their learning, and now they're getting patents in high school. Amazing, right? But it also accelerates their growth cycle and their exposure to things that they should or maybe shouldn't be exposed to. Is that a bad thing? No, maybe they grow up faster, but we haven't been designed to have the right school systems and parenting processes to be able to handle that. So then the ancillary effect of it leads to a parent feeling lost, disconnected, child feels disconnected or lost, and increased barriers to those relationships. Now, we didn't get that rapid access to knowledge, but we had closer family groups. We had to literally visualize our imaginary
things that we can now just turn on a computer, like it's right there, right? I mean, Sega Dreamcast, that was like amazing, right?
Yeah.
You got a Dreamcast?
Sega Dreamcast.
I remember blowing out the cartridges, and you on the last boss, it's over.
Yeah.
So like that was different, but we said, hey, we didn't have to rely on it as much. We were at the parks, we were out with families. We had to really, really build relationships differently, but we couldn't grow as fast. We couldn't learn as fast. Then the smartphone came out. That right during the time we transitioned into adulthood. So we were able to apply, a lot of us, a business-minded set to that digital transformation. And we turned it into the things that you see today, which are some of the greatest products ever known to man. But if you're presented with this acceleration of knowledge before your mental maturity stage, that's why children that are so young are overwhelmed with porn now at 10 years old and stuff like that. Like their parents give them a smartphone with no parental barriers, and now they're in schools with kids a little bit older than them. They're finding out about things they shouldn't know about, and now their psyche is negatively impacted for life. How do we adjust? Not really sure. You know, this is going to have to be an evolution of education, an evolution of parenting, but both generations are beautiful, and the next generation is going to be far better than this one. So there's no doubt that Gen Z will be superior in what they create and in their intellect, but I hope we don't lose those values.
Right, and that's key. Holding on to those values are key, and it's important for us to, when we have kids, is to continue to teach those values that we learned from our parents and grandparents. And if we don't do that, then this new generation won't have that understanding of what life was like for our parents in the 50s and 60s, and what our life was like in the 80s and 90s, and it's just we have to continue to pass that down.
Yeah, I think it's important because the thing is that so many people are focused, and it's not the majority of the population. It's just the socialites that believe that this is the majority of the world, want to be famous or known on Instagram or this or that, but they're putting the cart ahead of the horse. You don't want to be recognized until you got something that's worthy of being recognized about, because if that recognition comes too soon, you're going to be recognized for something that you are ashamed of than proud of. Because say some people, man, I want 1 million followers on Instagram, I want to be famous. What if I gave you that, right? And then you got to think about something. There's a reason why Drake comes out with so many songs back to back. He does so well, has been made to manage being on tour, and all these different artists are achieving so much. Because when you get that level of success, it's not optional. You have to grind. You now lose that level of simplicity that you may miss. Sometimes I miss that, right? Like, man, now I have all these businesses, I'm doing these things. I miss simple stuff sometimes. So, like, are you really ready for that? You know, you just got to really
you can't turn
think.
It off.
No, you can't.
If you want it to be successful, you cannot.
There's people's money involved, right? Like, even the artists, you know, there's a reason that they can't just go to another label. They sell their likeness as a company, which people own shares in. Oh, I don't want to make music no more. Well, great. Here's a lawsuit.
Exactly. Like, you signed this contract saying you would do X, and if you don't want to do X, we're gonna take it.
It's gonna be gone. Because this isn't a game, guys. Like your influencer work, anything you want to create. If you want anything to achieve a higher level of success, it's gonna have to be a company, and that company comes with a lot of responsibilities.
Right, definitely does, man. Man, I appreciate your time, Nathan. Man, this was awesome. You know, we dived in. I think, you know, for you, you provide a very unique, different perspective, man, because you're the smartest person I know. And for you, I'm just you're one of the smartest people I've ever met. And for you to be from where you're from, and you had access to knowledge just like everybody else had access to knowledge, and you took that and you applied it. You applied it, and you're continuously applying it, man. So, you know, it's all love. If you want to leave us with something, man, like, you know, tell us what ease is, and also, you know, leave us with.
Yeah, I think the thing that I could leave is that, you know, I'm addicted to these topics, and I break them out into separate groups. Best way to find out more about us, and not really for any benefit, is to go to itsease.com/academy. Everything we talk about here, even books I read, everything, like, I'm sharing it all on there. And I've got a lot of amazing speakers and different people that we feature that may not even have anything to do with my business, but I just want to get their voice out there. So go ahead and check us out at itsease.com/academy.
Cool. Awesome. That's it. It's
Appreciate you, brother.
1987.
Let's go.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man. All right.